Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle podcast this week. Not celebrated 5,000 games in style. A great result against Gillingham. That cements second spot in League Two for us. The Welsh are coming to Meadow Lane, not once but twice this coming week. First it's Newport on Tuesday night, and then it's our old pals Wrexham on Saturday. Who remembers Mansfield Town now, anyone? Big question mark. Bit of an injury and suspension pile up for the Newport midweek game. No Cameron, McGoldrick, Brindley or Bostock. What do we make of young McAuley? Not just his winning goal, but his defensive contributions as well. Helping us to dissect it with a welcome return to the starting lineup, Mr. Mark Stallard. Stell, great to have you back.
Evening.
Yeah. You didn't get back home till about 10 o'clock, did you, on Saturday, you were telling me?
Yeah. It was a bit of a trek back, obviously, with all the rain we've had. The A1, obviously up to where I live. I dropped Dave off, and after that, the A1 was flooded, diverted off that. There were diversions, or it was slow anyway near Cambridge up the A1. So I got back in mine just after 10 o'clock. So, but always better with 3 points. I thought it was a good performance, and always better travelling home with a win. Managed to listen to the England Rugby World Cup on the semi-final on the radio. Unfortunately, they got beat. But yeah, it was a long day, but always worth it. Good 3 points. Great response from after that Mansfield game.
But mind you, were you in them posh padded seats with loads of cover in the press box, while us Warriors were in the in the old when it started raining about 2:45. I got the black hoodie on. I thought, oh, we're going to get wet here. In the end, it wasn't too bad, but yeah.
Well, I mean, when it's that open end, isn't it? Uncovered end where the Notts fans were, or bulk of the Notts fans were going to be, and you think that whether the weather this week had put a few off anyway. But no, fantastic travelling in numbers, great support. I know that the club had paid for some of the travel and what have you, but it's still big decision, a long way to go. And say with floods in the country, we see what this country's like after a bit of weather, don't we? It grinds to a halt. So. Yeah, fantastic travelling fans, and they got well rewarded with the performance.
Yeah, and before we go any further, we should all say a big thank you to Alex and Christoph Reitz for their very kind gesture to commemorate the 5,000th game by giving free coach travel. Several hundreds of those took advantage of it. I think just over 800, was the total away following, which is great. To say we're in a temporary stand at Gillingham. That's been a temporary stand since about 1932, I think. But anyway, it was a good day. Good day, really enjoyed it. Some comments on the message boards. Chris Gosling, what a great day Saturday. Sat in an away end that was National League standard at best, watching the Mighty Pies put on a very resolute and spirited performance. Not perfect, but very enjoyable. Karen Knight says, hello everyone. Peter Cowlishaw, 3 points, and that winner made a tough weekend a little easier. I think it's quite a lot easier. Stephen Newton, evening all, great day Saturday in the dry stand, and an appearance from Basil Brush to boot. Ian Cooks, a great result on Saturday, but it would have made for interesting reading on social media if the defending for their equaliser had cost us. And I'm a bad culprit for this one, as you know, Ian, but this is a social media free zone, okay? Dale Piker, evening all. Duncan Comrie, good evening, everyone. Another good away win onwards and upwards. Derek Flowers, good evening all. 4 points from next 2 games. Yeah, I'd take that. I would take that right now. Whichever way round it is, that's 7 out of 9 after you've had a bit of a gupping at home. I think that would be perfect. Shane Walker, evening all. Ian Cooksey, good to see Stell back. 71, Rob M. Morning all, or probably evening. I think he's from Australia somewhere, hence the morning. Brazilian Fury, afternoon or evening all. Well, I think he's South America. So that's at least 3 continents ticked off by our flop. A.D. Clark, another continent, or might as well be in Alfreton. Evening, well-deserved Saturday, back to winning ways. Macca, what a screamer. Oh, McAuley, sorry. Force of habit, Macca, isn't it? What a screamer. Evening all from Martin Shipley from Pythagorean. Ian Cooksey, great to hear an idiot-free zone. Paul, he says, Josh Brown, great result Saturday. Very worried about the lack of squad depth for tomorrow. Have we got 11 available? Good evening from Malcolm Shearston. You're tapping him in as quickly as I can read him. Stell. let's just dissect a little bit Saturday. Put into context, having lost in the way that the club did against Mansfield, how good a result, how important a result and performance was that on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, massively important, and I think the performance was really good as well. Really strong. I thought we controlled the game. 2-1 away from home sounds like tight, and it was tight. Sam Slocum has to make a save in stoppage time, doesn't he? Does really well. But I thought we had we controlled the game. I thought we were more comfortable than maybe even the scoreline suggested. And if we hadn't have come away with 3 points, I think it would have been a travesty, and we would have been, massively frustrated, because I thought it was a controlled performance against a team. Like I say, their previous 6 games at home, they'd won 4 of them, drawn 1, lost 1. So these were no mugs. These were a team that would have fancied their chances, and I thought we nullified them in large amounts. I remember them having a header from a corner, which was slightly concerning in the first 15, 20 minutes. And then another sort of half chance at the near post that I put over McAuley Bon. But other than that, I think we kept them pretty much at arm's length until the second half and the goal. And I say questionable defending again to be looked at. But I thought as a performance, I thought it was really strong. I thought, without John Bost, I thought Matty Palmer stood up, did brilliantly. Jim O'Brien came in and did really well as well alongside him. But I thought everybody did their role. I thought we looked assured in possession of the ball. My only real criticism of Saturday was the fact I thought the final ball, we got in so many good areas, and then the final ball was a bit wasteful. Crosses going too deep, too heavy. But I thought we got into them positions in the final third, and we could have, with a bit better quality in the final third, I think we could have had 3, 4, decent chances, decent goals. But we only needed 2, and what a screamer the winner was! What an absolute screamer! And we're going to go on to talking about squad depth, aren't we? And we're going to go, people suspended and injured now. But it comes down when somebody gets a chance, when you get that starting shirt, or you come on early on in the game, as Lewis McAuley did. You have a chance. You have a chance to state your claim, and the goal was an absolute worldie, a rocket. But I thought he came in and looked assured, and he's another one that's put his hand up and said to the manager, "You can trust me." And so that's what they need. They might need to rotate. They might need to use a few of the squad. But when you get that chance, you've got to perform, and Lewis McAuley did on Saturday in what I thought was generally a really good team performance.
We'll come on to Mr. McAuley in a moment. Simon Blair, evening all from my holidays in Greece. Hope it's a little bit warmer than here, and a little bit drier as well, I would hope. Will Hart, evening all. Panic over for some fans following the Mansfield game. Onwards and upwards. Correct, Paul, says 71 Rob M. It was a great game on Saturday. Neil Piker sparked a bit of debate. Will Stell be on the bench tomorrow night? It can't be far off it, I tell you. It can't be far off. Evening from James Moore. Nice to see Stell back. Stephen Newton. I thought Jim and Matty dominated the midfield. James Moore. Jody was really alive Saturday. Looked dangerous all the time. Was surprised to see him come off. Ian Cooksey. Interesting to see Colchester sacking their manager on Saturday. Since they've beaten us, they've lost every game, just like Sutton did. I think it's a quarter of all League Two managers have now got the sack. And we're in October. Unbelievable. Malcolm Shearston would have been a travesty if the extra minutes added after the incident with Sam had led to us conceding a goal. Young Macari. Been quite a bit of debate, I think it's fair to say, still. Defensive options for the manager. And the kind of knee-jerk comment is we've not signed any defenders. We need the big 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". We did actually sign 2 defenders, Tipton and Macari, but unless you went to whatever it is, League Cup thing, you would not have seen either of them play. What did you... Is Macari someone you would think now that you could put in and play? Because both those 2 youngsters have, in the eyes of many fans, been nowhere near it. Yeah, based on the fact they've not had any minutes or anything. Yep. Would you say now he is capable of playing a series of games and is a defensive option. I can't think of two. Well, we've obviously got Connell to come back. Is he ready, do you think, now to play League Two football?
He certainly looked comfortable enough. And now I saw obviously I was at the Derby, the EFL Trophy game, and he played in that. Him and Ollie Tipton both played in that. And you know, I sort of get, we're all sort of thinking, okay, they've not had much of a look when it comes to the league games. You know, there's players ahead of them in the pecking order. They're two young lads with very little experience coming in. So, you know, they're there for squad depth. They're there to be, you know, backup, essentially. You've got to wait your turn and earn your right. Now, based only on 90 minutes, and I don't judge players on 90 minutes, but you can only, that's what you've seen, that's all you can use.
Yeah.
I thought Lewis McAuley did better in the Derby game than Ollie Tipton. So whether that's pushed him ahead slightly in the pecking order of them two, I don't know. Bear in mind, Luke Williams sees them day in, day out. So we can judge them on 90 minutes or, you know, little bits and bobs. He sees them day in, day out. So he'll have a little pecking order. I thought it was interesting Saturday that Connell was on the bench, and when Brins pulls up in the 15 minutes or whatever it was, you would think the immediate replacement is going to be Connell. You know, right side of the three, position that he played, position that he knows, the more experienced man. But he chose to go with Lewis McAuley. And again, I don't know whether that's because Connell's been carrying a knock or maybe isn't 100%. But either way, the young lad gets his chance, and that's what you want. You go into football to get you don't want to forever sit on the periphery, sit on the sidelines, be a squad player. Yes, you have to tolerate that when you're young and trying to make your way, but when you get your chance, you've got to grasp it. It's so important because you might not get too many if you don't. And I thought the way he came on, you know, you're not expecting to come on at that time. No matter, you're always ready, and you should always be, you know, expecting, but you're not fully expecting it that early in a game. Certainly not as a defender. But I thought he came on, he looked calm, he looked composed, you know, in the way that Luke Williams wants to play. There is pressure, if you like, a little bit on young defenders because you're going to have plenty of the ball. You're going to have to be comfortable on the ball. It's not just a case of, well, first 2 or 3 we get, just whack it up the touchline, knock it in the channels and get it away from our goal. That's not how we play, and that won't be tolerated. And he didn't look to do that. He didn't shirk anything, was available. And I thought he was really composed. You know, his goal, obviously a massive cherry on the top of the cake, and be a great boost for him and a great bit of confidence for him. But I thought he looked composed and measured. It didn't look like it fazed him. You know, his league debut, first game for Notts in the league. So it didn't look like it fazed him. And that's the first thing you look at. And then you look at what was he like on the ball? What's his defending like now? The one chance right near the end came down to his sort of side, but that's not a criticism of him necessarily. Again, you defend as a team. But I thought for the what's he had 75 minutes, 80 minutes, whatever with stoppage time, I thought he looked really composed. And would you, if you were Luke Williams, can you now trust him? I'm sure he feels like he can. Yeah. Whether that means he starts tomorrow night, he might opt for the experience of Connell. You don't know. But that's a Luke Williams decision. Thankfully, one I don't have to make.
Chris Gosling says McAuley was very assured Saturday, and there was a moment he was left 2-on-1, put in a brilliant challenge. For me, he has earned a starting spot. Josh Brown, does anyone think McAuley has been playing through an injury for a few weeks? I think his ankle's been in trouble for a while. Someone trod on him. He got a good whack on it, I noticed on Saturday. Kyle Cameron, Chris Gosling says, yellow card intentional. Conspiracy theories. Where would we be in life without conspiracy theories still? I mean, obviously...
hold on, Paul, because I think I started it on the radio because the situation looked absolutely ridiculous. It looked exactly like he wanted to get a deliberate yellow card. It looked so deliberate, it was almost... blatant, but I'm fairly sure it wasn't, but it just looked so bad, so deliberate that, you know, I'm starting. I'll take the blame for that. I said that on the radio. It looked like he was taking a deliberate yellow card for some reason.
Oh, you see, I didn't know that because obviously, as you know, I'm virtually all the game, so I don't actually hear you very often on the radio, and so I expected you to come in and say, no one ever gets deliberately, but no, and there you are. I mean, You are too young. Our older members of the flock, true story, Notts were playing Brighton, top flight of the English football. And it was a bizarre disciplinary scenario in the last game of the season before Brighton were in the FA Cup final. And very weird. If Steve Foster got a yellow card, he missed the cup final. If he got sent off, he didn't. Something to do with an appeal or something. So you had, honestly, I'm sure some of our flock will remember this. You've got Steve Foster with the headband, the big Brighton centre half. He's got a yellow. Oh, damn, right? He spent the last 20 minutes trying to get sent off, doing everything he can, kicking people, mouthing off at the ref. Of course, the ref knew this as well. The ref wouldn't give him enough. They wouldn't send him off. So he missed the first game. He missed the first cup final match. It was a draw, I think, Brighton, and then they lost in the replay. But yeah, so quite bizarre. That's the only time I can ever remember a player deliberately trying to have disciplinary action taken against him.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, I'm presuming you didn't say McGoldrick was a conspiracy theory as well.
Well,
I thought
no.
he was a bit unlucky there.
Yeah, I was going to say the ref flashed the yellow card quicker than you could say boo to a goose, couldn't you, with that one? And we were questioning ourselves whether he had actually shown it. So yeah, I mean, just unfortunate that the same incident within 30 seconds, that the sort of delaying of the free kick, Carl say it looked like it was deliberate. I'm not saying it was deliberate, but it looked like it was deliberate. The way he hesitated, the ref was, beckoning him. It was going to be a yellow card, but yeah, David McGoldrick, I say a little bit unfortunate maybe, but I'm not going to complain about the rules delaying the restart, because we'd be moaning if the boot was on the other foot. Somebody stopped us from getting on with the game. So it just happens to be that, yeah, a couple of these suspensions come at the same time for the same game. And I'm sure that the conspiracy theory aspect of the Carl Cameron one would be, has it been looked at to go better to miss Newport and have you definitely available for Wrexham on Saturday? I'm not sure things went into that depth. I think he just had a bit of a blank and a bit of one of them situations where he just could not decide what to do with the ball. But it certainly looked semi-deliberate, let's put it that way. But by the by, he'll miss tomorrow night, and like I say, it's a chance for somebody else to come in and stake a claim.
Chris Gossing says, as soon as Cameron was booked, he ran off and let Slocum take the kick. It really was quite comical. I knew I wasn't imagining it. Pythagorean, he's of a certain vintage. Yes, Steve Foster should have gone in that game for Brighton. Malcolm Shearston, I remember the incident with Steve Foster well. Ian Cooksey, Steve Foster tried his best to get sent off. I remember it too, says Stephen Newton. So all them five are about 60 plus, because you've got to be at least 50 plus to remember that. So that rules you out by a few years still.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about the Brighton Man U Cup final.
That's
that
it,
right?
yeah.
2-2 the first leg, and then was it 1-0 the second one?
Something like that.
4-0 might be 4-0 the second one. Yeah.
Game. I forget who it was. Gordon Smith.
Gordon Smith, that's the one. Yeah. 83, 84, something like that.
Yeah. Derek Flowers, Liam Noble made sure he got a red card before the Christmas period. Alan Birchnell always used to tell me when he was at Chelsea, Peter Osgood always got sent off in the third week of December, and he couldn't ever remember him playing a Boxing Day game or a New Year's game. And he would jokingly say to Birch, I've got Christmas off now. As I say, all these are conspiracy theories. I am absolutely sure. Right. Stephen Newton says he's 59. Simon Blair claims to be 83. I'm not sure. Well, I doubt you'll look as well as lady's name, Henshaw's mum, Jean, who's 93. Saw her at the game. Crikey, a fair play. 93, travelling the length and breadth of the country. Unbelievable, really. Let's talk goalkeepers, Stel. Since you've last been on, we had a is it a surprise change? I think many people were surprised. Sam Slocum comes back in. Never an easy thing for a manager to do, is it, to change his goalkeeper? I mean, what's been your take on the goalkeeping situation?
No, you're right. First and foremost, goalkeeper's never an easy change to make, unless there's been something glaring. And with Aidan Stone, there hasn't been. There's been nothing glaringly obvious. He's not sort of chucked 2 or 3 in, or had a bit of a nightmare. The only thing I can, well, a couple of things really, I would say contributed. I think and I forget the game before the Derby game. Obviously, Sam Slocum came in for the AFL Trophy game in Derby and had an absolute blinder.
Yeah.
So again, is that more power to the argument to say you come in, you get a starting shirt, and you perform, you keep the shirt? So it could be as simple as that. That Sam Slocum made 3 or 4 brilliant saves against Derby, so he kept the shirt for the Saturday. The only slight criticism I'd had of Aidan Stone, and I say he'd done nothing majorly wrong, just thought his distribution at times going long from the deck wasn't quite what it needed to be. I thought there was a lot. I say a lot. No, that's a bit harsh. There was quite a few sort of long balls that were dropping on centre halves' heads, not finding the targets, not really, providing Notts with what they wanted. And obviously there was the one howler, if you like, at Colchester, was it? Yeah, Colchester, wasn't it? Away where he rolled the ball into midfield and they put it into the open goal. So no major problems with Aidan Stone at some point if and when he comes back into the team. He's done nothing wrong. But I think Sam Slocum with the performance against Derby earned his right to keep the shirt. Tough call, real tough call. But it just, again, goes to show you that Luke Williams has got confidence and belief in the members of the squad. And if he thinks that call will be made, he's not going to back away from it. It would be easy to just stick with what you've got, isn't it? But to make a call like that when nobody was really clamouring for a change, nobody was saying, we must change the goalkeeper. So I like it. Strong leadership. I always say strong leadership is what you want. I think that's what Luke Williams provides in spades. I think the way he's, led this club and led this team and got them playing where they want, I think you would back 99.9% of his decisions that he makes. And again, you have to go back to the fact he sees them day in, day out in training as well as the game. So, more so now than ever, I think training plays a factor in selection. But it still comes down to what you do on a match day. That is above everything else. But yeah, I think Sam Slocum again, he made a great save at the end, a vital save at the end on Saturday. I think we've got 2 decent keepers for this level, and they will continue to push each other, I'm sure, all season.
Josh Brown agrees with you, Stel. Sam's distribution is better than Stone. I'd say Stone probably slightly better with it at his feet. I'd have Sam out of the 2. James Moore, it's good management bringing Sam back in. He played brilliantly against Derby, and it keeps Stone pushing and not getting complacent. It's not easy working out a team for Newport tomorrow, given the number of players that are out. By all means, on the on your comment section, if you want to have a stab at tomorrow's team, Tuesday night's team against Newport, please feel free to do so. Would you think, Stel, that given that they've won, Sam has now kind of got the number 1 place back at least, for tomorrow? You don't see him changing keepers. You don't see him doing one of these Arsenal type things. The 2 it's presented as the 2 vying for each other and rotating them and all the rest of it.
No, I don't see that being the case. I think Sam at the minute is in possession, and like I say, that's what you want: competition for places all over the pitch, of course. But goalkeeper should be no different. You tell the 2 lads, look. I trust you both, but one of you will be the man in possession, and I want the other one to push him as hard as you can on the training ground. And when you get your chance, you get a chance to take it. Now, Aidan Stone was in possession. Sam Slocum had his chance in the AFL Trophy, took that chance, and has stayed in since. He didn't do anything at the weekend. He's not done anything to suggest that needs changing back again. So I fully expect Sam to be between the sticks tomorrow night.
Wayne Wilkins said it was nice to fly over for the Mansfield game, but even nicer to see that winner fly in on Saturday. Derek Flowers, no disrespect to Stone, but Archie Mayer should still be at Notts. He's wasted in the National League. Nick G, think we're lacking a bit of cover up front. Wayne Wilkins as a coach. You have to set the boundaries and then stick to them. That's what earns trust. You can't convince others to trust you. Then they will be convinced by the actions and the trust you show in them. People are having a go at the back three. Pythagorean has gone. Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't think this will happen. There's a back three predicted here of Tipton, Baldwin, and McAuley. Long odds on that one, I would say, Stowe, wouldn't you?
Well, not as long without the suspensions, but yeah, I mean, whether Ollie Tipton comes in as you know on the left side, I don't know. But then he's going to take some reshuffling, some rejigging. So who? I say that
He's
left side is up.
Rawlinson, I would have thought, isn't he? He's going to go Rawlinson.
I would think he would go with the experience of Connell. Yeah, I would think so. But again, we don't know. We're not privy to what's happening in training, what shape everyone's in, whether anyone's carrying niggles and knocks. You know, I thought it was interesting. Lewis McAuley got the nod ahead of Connell on Saturday. So it could be anything. I mean, there's not that many to choose from. I think one more injury, we would have broke out Mike Edwards again in an emergency, wouldn't we? So, you know, so like I say, Ollie Tipton could well be starting. It wouldn't be beyond comprehension for him to start tomorrow night because there's not that many bodies available to do it.
How much of a danger Lord Mayor's Show and all of that, having won at Gillingham and Newport midweek, there's an element of supporters who are always going to be dismissive of the opposition purely by looking at the table. You know, given the injuries and suspensions that we have got, how weakened are we tomorrow, do you think? And how difficult is this Newport game? Because there will be an element of our fan base that even now, Tuesday night, will beat them.
Yeah. Look, there's no dressing up. We are obviously slightly weakened by having, you know, first team players, regulars, the skipper, David McGoldrick, John Bostock, you know, players that play regularly, you know, not having them available. So you are slightly weakened. But then that comes down again to that presents an opportunity for whoever it is to come in and go, well, I'm going to show us that we're not weakened. And if we look like we're weakened, then what that tells the manager, the head coach, Luke Williams, is that, yeah, then players deserve to come straight back in because we drop our standards without them. So there's a chance, an opportunity for those that do play to do a Sam Slocum, if we're going to use him as the most recent example. Lewis McAuley might be the similar one. If he starts tomorrow night, comes on at the weekend, takes his opportunity, does well, keeps his place. So everybody's misfortune, and always say this, when you get a chance to start, you've got to grasp it. That's your audition. That is your audition to tell the manager that you should be a regular starter, not the man that people are judging should be a regular starter. And, you know, you should take it as not a personal insult, but a slight, you know, dig at your own pride that people think, well, if you're in the team, that weakens us a little bit. You stick your chest out and go, no, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you I can play just as well, if not better. And I'm going to perform and do a job for the team. So that's always the challenge. That's always the professional pride challenge of being a squad player, if you like, not being the manager's first choice. Now, some players we've known over the years, and everybody knows it, some players kick the toys out of the pram, don't they? And sulk. And if I'm not first choice, well, I'm not, you know, I'm not training pro, I'm being a bad apple. But I don't think we've got any of that at Notts. I don't think Luke Williams would tolerate that for a second. There is no suggestion of that whatsoever. I think we've got as good a group as there probably has been in living memory, recent living memory anyway, at Notts. So I think he's got players that he trusts. I think he's got players that are well drilled. Even the squad players know what's expected of them when they come into the team. So on paper, yes, we can say we're going to be slightly weakened, but I'm sure Luke Williams won't believe that, and the players certainly won't believe that's the case. So they'll be going out there with a point to prove. And the other side of the coin is, yeah, anybody who takes Newport and thinks that's going to be his game, looking at the table, daft, absolutely daft. You know, there's no logic in that. We lost to Sutton, and we got hammered by Sutton first game of the season, who bottom of the table. You know, if you're not right, and if you take anybody lightly, they can beat you in this division. You know, it's as simple as that. So Notts have got to turn up, got to play well. Newport, who they've got the top scorer in the league, let's not forget. You know, at this current time, Will Evans, top scorer individually in the league, despite their league position. You know, Newport have been a solid League Two team and have had some good cup runs. And when Michael Flynn was in charge,
that's it.
You know, they were a hard to beat team. They got results. They were dogged. They worked hard. You know, and got results. Since Graham Coughlin's gone there, the last year, things have just gone a little bit off the boil. But you'd be foolish to think that it's a given. Don't worry about it. Again, they've got the leading goal scorer who scored more goals than McAuley Langstaff. So he's got to be red hot in a team that is, 19th in the table. So, you know, they score goals. They do concede them. But then they'll be saying exactly the same thing about Notts and going, there's not too many goals scored for and against difference. And we're second and they're 19th in the table. So, look, anybody who takes it as thinks it's going to be a foregone conclusion, I'm afraid that's not the mentality the players need to have.
Chris Gosling says, Austin and Crowley playing behind Macca tomorrow? ? Don't think Naman made quite as much impact playing in that role. Kiss of death incoming, says Wayne Wilkins. Although Newport are top 6 in goals scored, they're atrocious away from home. Josh Brown, think we've only got Austin and Crowley for options behind the striker. James Moore, what's happening with John Bostock? On that one, we did mention last week, James. I think the manager's he kind of keeps his cards close to his chest on injuries, and he doesn't kind of like giving too many updates and saying he's 3 weeks away, he's 2 weeks away. I remember during my time at Leicester, there'd be certain managers that just would say, "No, I'm not talking anything about that." If you listened to Luke's interview on Saturday when he was asked about John, I think the phrase he used was he's a little bit away, which I kind of interpret as, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, but I don't think he's coming back imminently. Ian Cooks, he says, I wouldn't be dismissive of anybody, especially when you see the current bottom two have both beaten us and have scored 10 goals in the process. Nobody's mentioning Chicks and Nick, injured. Any of the players, I checked with the club last week, because again, the conspiracy theories abound, like people like Will Randall and all of that. If they ain't in the squad, it's because they're injured or recovering from injury. What else have we got? Chris Gosling, we've lost the bottom two this season, albeit away from home. I'd start Chickson on the left of the back three tomorrow, says Josh. He's injured. Or maybe he's not. Maybe he will suddenly return tomorrow and surprise us all. Who knows? Chris John Wright says, Notts 2, Newport 0 tomorrow, and on Saturday, Notts 1, Wrexham 1. Make an old man happy and get another 11-1 win, says Elkazar 35. And that's before my time. Notts did beat Newport in a league game 11-1. I don't know if it's about the 50s or something still, but obviously someone with a very long memory can remember that one. Elkazar, says Chris Jordan, people would still moan about us conceding the one. Very good, very good. Derek Flowers, I forecast a 3-0 win, Macca 2 and Crowley. All right, that's Newport. We got another game later this week, and clearly we're discussing this before the Newport game. If we look at ourselves and Wrexham, tore the league up last season still. Tore it up, National League. Lots of quotes about our Notts and Wrexham are, League One clubs in waiting and all of that sort of thing. And I think both of us, while doing fine, have kind of had baptisms of fire. And here's one thing I'd put to you. Notts and Wrexham, both of us doing fine now. We both have 2 of the 6 worst defensive records in League Two in terms of the numbers of goals conceded. What does that surprise you, Stel? What does that put down to you? Do you think we or supporters kind of got a little bit carried away with results from last season? Means where we're already better than League Two, and we could both sets of teams could hold their own in League One.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, it does surprise me the number of goals we've conceded this season, and by the extension, I was going to say the same for Wrexham.
Yeah.
Although I've not seen obviously any of their games, but they've had some absolute goal fests, a bit like ourselves. Look, when things are going well, and as well as they were in the National League for Notts and Wrexham last season, then the platitudes and the sort of hype gets exaggerated and amplified because it was just an unbelievable. They were head and shoulders above the rest of the National League. So the difference this season doesn't surprise me. The fact that they're not running away with it, but also they're not struggling. Both clubs are doing really well.
Yeah.
And are right up there in the mix. Doesn't surprise me one way or another. And it could still go both ways for either club, couldn't it? We are barely a quarter of the way through the season. Both clubs have had bad defeats, and both clubs have won plenty of games. So they've shown that they can adapt to the level. That was never in doubt because most of the players have played at this level. What Notts and Wrexham, I think both have got is continuity of the team selection. Not loads of turnover. I don't believe their team's much different to what was playing in the National League, and Notts' team, isn't massively different either. So they've got that momentum, that continuity of way of playing, style of play, and all that sort of thing. But what they have found, and again, I think it just reiterates the point that we all knew. Nobody's, reinventing the wheel here, but they're not going to have it all their own way in League Two because it's a better standard. And although it's a step up that's not insurmountable, it is a step up. And I've said right from the start, the step up is more noticeable in your week-to-week consistency of the opposition. Whereas in the National League, I think you could count, Chesterfield, Boreham Wood, one or two others that you think that's going to be a real tough game this weekend. But you could probably only count 3 or 4 really, really tough opposition. There was a few who you thought, well, we should beat. If we play, we batter these. And while I still think if we play well in League Two, we beat the other teams. But if we don't reach them absolute pinnacle standards, which we haven't done probably for 90 minutes this season, then we've seen there are more teams. In fact, all teams at this level are good enough, got good enough personnel, are well organised enough, well drilled enough to punish you. Whereas I don't think the same could be said in the National League. So, and again, that's just backed up by the evidence of losing the first day at Sutton. By this stage last season, we'd lost 1 game. We've lost 3 to this point. And again, that's not me being emphasising the doom and gloomers that'll say, we're second in the table. It's been a great start to the season, but it's not come as any surprise. We are a really good team with really good players, but we're up against better teams and better players than we played for week in, week out last season. And it's no surprise that Notts and Wrexham will both do well. But there are other teams that can match them and live with them and take them all the way. So it's so important to be consistent, to not look any further ahead than the next game. And the Newport game for Notts is the next big game. It's the biggest game because it's the next one.
Okay, let's get a few more thoughts. Wrexham's such a massive game, says James Moore. I think we owe them one. Let's just square away. Notts County 11, Newport 1. It was, according to Pythagorean, on the 15th of January, 1949. That was definitely before me and you, Stel. Score 11-1 to Notts, yeah. I was there, Alcazar says. It was 7-0 at half-time. Well remembered. Or did you have to look it up? Chris Jordan, scorers: Houghton 1, Sewell 4, Lawton 4, Johnston 2, Stallard 1. That makes 12. Obviously, you weren't there. Talking about the strength in depth of Wrexham, Josh Brown says probably something to do with the 2 million plus they've spent on players, Nick. Stephen Fletcher, League Two star. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, top player in his time, but he's aging. He's a 36, is he now? I think so. Again, him and James McLean, two international players, international quality players. Look, they've got the resources. They can recruit, but I would argue David McGoldrick, Dan Crowley. They might not have the international pedigree, or quite Dan Crowley certainly not the international pedigree, but I would argue as good signings as anything Wrexham have made. So look, names on a team sheet don't win games. It's performances that win games. So you can line your squad with all the top players, which you would expect. You can look at anybody. Stockport will have a squad full of really good players. They might not be as household names, but at this level, they'll be really good players and they'll be well managed as well. So look, there's plenty of good players in the league. Wrexham have got a load, Notts have got a load, Stockport have got a load, and a few other clubs have got a load as well. So it's about who can get the most consistency, the most performances out of them players. And at the minute, we're sat second in the table, so we're doing something right.
James Moore said, here's one for our flock. I saw a Sky Bet post today saying how well we were doing. And can Luke Williams make it back-to-back promotions? How many managers have had back-to-back promotions with Notts, other than Jimmy Cyril and Neil Warnock? Maybe there is. Off the top of my head, and I stand to be corrected, I can't think of one. It should have been Steve Cottrell, but we got rid of him, or he elected to leave after we won in 2009. But I'm guessing there must be one of them, although I can't think of one off the top of my head. What else have we got? Jimmy's promotions were not back-to-back. They were 70-71 and 72-73, says Ian Cupsey. You are bang on, Ian. You were bang on. They were 2 in 3, weren't they? They were 2 in 3. James Moore, I was scratching my head, Josh. Sure, there are only 2. To my knowledge, only stretches back to the 70s, 80s. I think you've slung us a curveball, James, there. That I don't think there is. But anyway, we'll see whether anyone else can prove us wrong. Stel, quarter of the season gone. Notts and Wrexham figure very highly in people's tips for automatic. Do you think Wrexham will be in the top 3 at the end of the season or not?
Yes, I do. I think they will. And again, it comes down to resources and the fact that they could go again in January. They've shown they're not averse to strengthening at any point of the season. So I do. Given the sort of the players that they've got, the squad depth that they've got, I think I don't see them being outside the top 3. But again, there are teams that will push them. It won't be the cakewalk of the National League for them, just like it won't be for Notts. But I think I'd be surprised if they weren't in the top 3 at the end of the season.
Yeah. Well, what sort of atmosphere you're expecting Saturday? I look forward to every game that Notts playing, but I would think you'd be looking at 13,000-14,000 crowd Saturday. They'll bring a load. I think it will be a cracking game. We did, of course, beat them at Meadow Lane, didn't we, last year? And that was a great game. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, and one of Notts' best performances for the first sort of half hour or whatever it was. McAuley Langstaff scored that well rehearsed free kick training ground routine, didn't he, for the 1-0 win? I think it'd be a cracking atmosphere because last season was so out the ordinary, so extraordinary, achievement of a season where I think Notts and Wrexham have been sort of intrinsically woven together a little bit certainly for the coming seasons, while ever they're in the same team, they will always have the National League season, won't they? I mean, it was incredible. So there will be that rivalry, there will be that competition that, okay, Wrexham won the title, got their nose over the line first. So I think that provides Notts with a bit of maybe a spark to say, well, can we do you this time? Can we finish above you this time? We think it was, a toss of a coin last season, difference between them over 46 games. It could be the same this season, So I think there's a little bit of extra oomph in it. Like, it certainly was when we played Wrexham back in my day. There was never any sort of, any added spice to it. But I think because the last season, there's certainly an added element of interest to it. Obviously, the Ryan Reynolds and the ownership thing grabs the attention. And I think also there's a little bit of envy towards all the media hype that they get as well, and all that sort of thing. So, I think it'll add an extra dimension to the game. But I think it'll be a fantastic game anyway between two really good teams.
Have you watched much of the documentary, Stow?
No, I've not seen. Well, tell a lie. I've not seen any of it up until watching Gogglebox on Friday. They showed a bit of it. They showed a bit of Phil Parkinson channeling his inner Gordon Ramsay with an inspired. It was like a manager's speech from back in my day, where every second word began with F and had to be bleeped out. So, but yeah, that they showed a bit of it, which was the clip of the Sheffield United sort of FA Cup game, and again, yes. I say it's the first bit I'd seen of it. So I don't know what they showed, 2 minutes of it, if that. But it amazed me how much they are obviously absolutely playing on this underdog role, despite the resources that they've got. I mean, I know compared to Sheffield United, yes, they would be underdogs, but yeah, the obviously playing on that underdog tag. So yeah, fair play to them for that. I'm not having a go at that. I think credit to them if you create interest. That's what it's about. It's about balancing the books at the end of the day. But no, that's the only bit of the documentary series that I've seen anyway. That's the only bit.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, I've got to say, I've watched quite a bit of it with my lad, and it is very, very well done. And look, you would expect, wouldn't you, one of the world's top 3 actors, Ryan Reynolds, to act well. Or the delivery of his lines, and there's the classic line where him and Ryan Ryan and Rob read out. There's a response from a Notts fan to, would you kindly like to take part in our documentary? And then it's like, you can shove your documentary up and they read it out in their American accents, and they're all laughing at it as well. Hilarious. Very well done. Very, very well done, And it is interesting still, because the year Notts got promoted, when I was a teenager, 1981, I went to Wrexham, drew 1-1, and that was in the Championship or the second division. That was the year Notts got promoted. And that time, so that would have been 80. That's probably the highest Wrexham have been. And like you said, there was why would there be? They're like 180 mile away in a different country. But now I think for a core demographic of our supporters, this is a big one. There's Mansfield, and not far behind Mansfield is the Wrexham game. And I think it's going to be really banging on Saturday. I do, and both sets of fans seem to have got, engaged into it. We'll all be hoping that Ryan Reynolds flies in on his private jet to Tolton Aerodrome or whatever it is, or his helicopter. But no, I think it'll be great theatre. And I'm just seeing some of the messages here thinking that we could be nudging towards 16,000, which would be unbelievable. That Wrexham have done all their, I think it's just shy of 3,000. These are the games you want in the Football League for Football League points that give everyone great entertainment. Lads will be out in the pubs, won't they, at 8 a.m. or whatever. And this is all part of Notts and Wrexham, for that matter, getting back into the Football League and making a Notts-Wrexham game 3 years ago, so what? Like one of the highlights of the season. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, I think credit goes to the owners, of Notts and of Wrexham.
Yeah.
The credit goes to them for doing it different ways, and obviously having their own ways and doing it. But the absolute credit, because you're absolutely right, Paul. I think back to my time of playing. Notts v Wrexham was just another game. No added spice to it. Notts v Wrexham. Okay, it would have only been 4 years, because Wrexham had 13 years, something like that, in the National League. Their gates were dwindling. There was nothing particularly good happening to Wrexham. Notts going out the league 4 and a bit years ago. You look at it and go, there's nothing good happening at that time, and you look at it, how's this going to turn around? And then you create this momentum. Both clubs with new ownership doing it, different models, different ways, but both clubs have generated this absolute buzz and interest and an absolute cacophony of fans for both clubs. Again, done different ways. Notts averaging over 10,000 for home games in League Two is just unbelievable. But that's created by what's happened at the club. It's been generated from the owners down, and everybody's played a part. The management team, Jason Turner, when he was around, and played a large part in it. With the coaching staff and the players take their credit for it as well. But it's a massive snowball of momentum going. Builds up, that plays this attacking football, good to watch. And it becomes real entertainment to get to Meadow Lane now. I've played at Meadow Lane when there's been sort of 3,000-4,000 there. And because of the size of it, unfortunately, it feels like 1,500 elsewhere. So to get over 10,000 in League Two is an absolute masterstroke, because all that is doing is putting Notts County, the club and the business, in a better position and a more healthy position to try and keep this momentum going to achieve more success. So it's a win-win. And obviously Wrexham have mirrored it and done it, a different way, but it's the same thing. And that's exactly what clubs want. You want to get on that upward curve, build that positivity and bring in new fans, because it's all about the fans. Football clubs are a community asset that we all know about and we all know and love. And that's the reason we're all bothered about it so much. And that's the reason that Notts and Wrexham have been on this sort of parallel line journey, if you like, over the last 18 months. And that's why Saturday's game becomes this sort of pinnacle game, if you like. Below the Mansfield game, I think it probably is the most appealing game of the season. And it just captures the imagination and just, it's entertainment. And people want to come. And people want to pay their money and want to come and watch it and be part of it and experience the atmosphere as well. And, I'm looking forward to it. But again, I'm not looking past the Newport game tomorrow, but it is just a fantastically big game for League Two. There'll be so much hype on it because of what happened last year. And, both clubs hopefully will revel in that and we'll see a fantastic game that Notts win 11-1.
Derek Flower says, let Wrexham have the media attention while Notts go about their business under cover. Chris John Wright says, Stockport, Wrexham and Notts, the top three for me. What else have we got coming in on the message boards? John Catliff, we are a different animal now. We have a style of play which we stick with even when we are under pressure. James Moore, Wrexham was always a minor fixture for me in times past. Credit to Ryan and the other fella for turning them around. Andrew Racing, 15 years still. Wrexham went out of the league with Mansfield 2009. AD Clarksdale, when was the last time you watched a dull Notts game? 5-figure crowds, one of the current owner's biggest achievements, says Simon Blair. Did see a comment about the interview with the Notts new chief executive, Mr. Palmer, that the club put out end of last week. Yeah, I thought there were some quite interesting pieces in that. Spoke about the need for the club to be more proactive commercially. And one point I did, and just so you know, because I know that the questions will come in, have spoken with the club. The plan is for the CEO to do a fans forum potentially before Christmas, and then the intention is for him to come on to our show in the new year, so you can ask him all the various questions. But one point I did find quite interesting that he made, and I also wrote this in my book, The Magpie Redemption, 15 quid. Want a signed copy? 12 quid. It's coming out very soon. It's out on Kindle. will be out for the Crawley game in the club shop, eBay and all the rest of it. Outside chance of Saturday, but I don't think I will have got all the copies back. This is the only copy in existence at the minute. But the point that the CEO made was, he said he's been spending a lot of time networking with council leaders, university academics, business people in the city, because he thought Notts had slipped a little bit behind being, if you like, relevant and having the right connections in the city, which is a point I raise in my book. It was typified, I think, when the city council couldn't be bothered to have a civic reception for us after we got promoted. So he said he has been doing quite a lot of time on that, which I found quite interesting. Certainly a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Still, closing comments. We're coming to the end of the show now. You will be at both games, presumably, this week, yes?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, very good. We've asked you about Wrexham, top three. You and I both on the record, and we try and look at this holistically. Get to January the 1st. If we're in the mix, perhaps a little test for the owners, freshen up, strengthen, whatever adjectives we all use. How would you assess, having both of us kind of said we'd be happy with playoffs, how would you assess Notts' chances of being a top three team come the end of the season?
Well, I think they're as good as anybody's, aren't they? You know, second in the table, it's ridiculously tight, as we know, and there's a long way to go and all that sort of stuff, which is absolutely right. But given that we're second in the table after not 14 games, then there's no reason we can't be top three. I say that what the target I sort of had at the start of the season was, be in and around them playoffs, you know, with a chance of automatic. You know, if you're to do that, I think in League Two, you're talking about basically top 10, top 12, almost coming into the last 10 games of the season, because it's usually that sort of tight, that interchangeable. Don't forget, top 7, it's 3 plus then 4 in the playoffs. So top 7 are involved in the promotion and then playoff sort of mix. So I certainly think Notts have shown, like I say, they've not surprised me at how good they've been. They've not. The only surprise has been we've let in a few more goals than I thought we would do. But they're more than capable of competing. They're talented players, and they're a good group, and they're really, really well drilled, really well managed, and they've got momentum and they've got belief, and that is massive in sport, in football particularly. So while ever they can harness that, then they've got as good a chance as anybody else. But there will be bumps along the way. This isn't going to be another 107-point season. Yeah. You know, this is a step up. You know, and they've made that step up. But again, already we've lost 3 games compared to 1 at this stage last season. So, you know, that's because you're up against tougher opposition who are doing everything they can to upset you and cause an upset. And Notts and Wrexham will have come into this division with more fanfare than most National League promoted clubs. And the size of Notts and the hoo-ha and razzmatazz around Wrexham will mean that, again, they're clubs that are going to be shot at in League Two. So teams are going to want to cause an upset, if you like, want to stop Notts winning. So it makes it tough. But they've risen to that challenge, and I think they've been. I think so far, if you're talking about first quarter of the season, I think they've been a pretty solid 8 out of 10. Room for improvement, but second in the table, I think we'd have all took that, at the start of the season. So, I think they've got every chance of being automatic, but it's going to be tight, and it's going to be, they're going to lose a few more games. That's just how it's going to be. But they've got to keep believing that they're good enough to win enough games, and that the way that they play, they set out to go and win games. And we know we've got the ammunition to score goals. We know we've got plenty of weapons to hurt the opposition. And I think we've got the ability, given a bit of luck with injuries, suspensions, things like that, that I think we've got the ammunition to go and get in them top 3 places. But it is going to be tough, and there'll be I would say 7 or 8 teams at least harbouring the exact same sort of ambition at this point.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about the players tonight. Luke Williams is the focal point, head coach, manager, call it what you want. A lot rests on him. A lot rests on his head and his shoulders. And when I look at what we've got at this moment in time, I look at it and I think he's kind of extracting just about every possible ounce of what we've got in our group of players. You know, we had quite a few injuries for Saturday, and I thought it was a massive result Saturday, absolutely massive result. There will come moments in this season. I'll call it now. We'll go 4 or 5 games and we won't win, just because I think it's like you've just said. It's so much more competitive, and I think as fans we've got to try and be holistic about it all. But I noticed some teams, Gillingham, good team, teams pay us a lot of respect now still. I mean, have you noticed, like, you know, Gillingham weren't quite sure how to play us or not play us. Morecambe's third game of the season just retreated at home into their half of the pitch, you know. And I think that's a great credit to the way we have a methodology and a style of play. And people give us the opposition, I think, give us a lot of respect for that. And we kind of stick to our guns and stick to our principles. Doesn't always work, but there's a clear identity, isn't there now, I think, which I think is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the main thing. And you say the respect that we are given by other clubs is earned. You know, respect is earned because it doesn't happen by coincidence. Clubs do their scouting. They've got analysts everywhere. Yeah. Now there's a level up from National League, even at that side of things, the data analysis. So they'll know all about how not want to play. But it's then you've got to be, you know, like I say, it's always a clash of styles or a team that wants to play the same way. It's always about you've got to do it well enough, and you've got to do it well enough over 90 plus minutes, and not the way they play with the quality that they've got. They're like a woodpecker, just keep tapping away at you. Pass the ball, probing. Can they get in them pockets of spaces? Dan Crowley, David McGoldrick. Can we get it wide? Jody Jones, Aaron Naman, Toby Adebayo, whoever's playing out there. And we'll keep coming at you, and we'll keep feeding the ball down. We'll keep asking you to defend. And eventually, or close us down. And, you know, hopefully, eventually, like a woodpecker, you'll eventually break through the bark and you'll get a hole. And, you know, that is just our not so. There's such an identity. And we all know it because we see it. So any scout and any analyst who watches not more than 3 or 4 times will have a pretty good idea of how they're going to try and play. The difficulty is stopping it. You know, it's all right knowing what somebody's going to do or not having an idea that you think you know what they're going to do. But football, when you've got possession of the ball and this control of the game that Luke Williams has, and a lot of football coaches have now, and teams like to play with the ball. Have the ball, you control the game. Football is played in the spaces between the opposition players. Okay, so you can have a formation and you can mark it on a board and X's, right, we're there. That's where I want your team shape. But if the opposition go and stand by you, then it's down to you to go and find space. So you then move out of your formation. You always play with the ball, trying to find the spaces, the green grass that coaches have talked about forever and a day. You know, football is played with the ball in spaces between the opposition. And if you can find them spaces and you've got quality, you'll always hurt the opposition. Not necessarily every game, you don't always get your rewards, but Notts have got that quality and they're finding them spaces and they're difficult to play against. And they've got that belief and momentum and confidence and all the good stuff that you need, allied with good players and belief in the manager and belief in the way that you're doing it. That means, do you know what? I would have a 50p bet with you now, Paul. I don't think we'll go 5 games unbeaten all season. Oh, sorry, 5 games without a win all season. I think we're that good. I don't think we'll go 5 games without winning all season.
Here's to that. Thank you very much indeed, one and all. Thank you for all your messages. Plenty of them this evening. Nice busy week. 2 games at Meadow Lane in the space of 5 days. That's what we like. We'll be all down at both of them. Snell, thank you very much, as always, for joining us again tonight. We will be back next Monday, and we can assess how well we've got on against Newport and Wrexham. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Be in touch soon. Bye for now.